Welcome to the monthly Consumer Issues program hosted by Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County. On the second Thursday of each month, we are joined by New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher, who makes a presentation on a topic of consumer interest. Today, he'll provide us with a charitable giving update, including some legal issues surrounding charitable giving, scams that sometimes occur, and other things for consumers to consider when making donations. After his presentation, Mr. Danaher will answer questions that viewers have submitted to CCE Tompkins in the Zoom chat box. This presentation also will be available on the CCE Tompkins YouTube channel and will be broadcast next month on Mondays on Public Access Channel 15. Thank you for joining us today. And now here is New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher with today's program.
Thanks, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone for our monthly consumer issue program. As indicated before, that today's topic involves charitable giving update, or how to avoid frauds and scams related to charitable giving. I know that we're fast approaching the holiday season. It's been an interesting year, and to some extent, charities have needed these additional funds to fulfill their charitable missions. There's a lot of people out there right now that could benefit from charitable organizations and charitable proceeds. Just to kind of give you a background of why our office would be involved in charitable giving and that sort of thing, on top of the issue of scams and frauds. That's a given. But a lot of people don't realize that the New York State Attorney General's office is the statutory representative or overseer of funds that are given for charitable purposes. What's that mean? Well, under the statute, our office represents those indefinite, unidentified individuals who can't otherwise represent themselves in the use of charitable funds. The example that I will use frequently when I explain that to people is to tell them that we don't represent the charity. So we don't represent the United Way, the Red Cross, Cornell University, any charitable entity itself. The people that we represent are the ones who benefit from charitable funds held by those organizations. So I say we don't represent the Red Cross, we represent the disaster victims or the potential disaster victims. In that role, we oversee how entities use their charitable funds to make sure that they use it for the mission that was intended. Kind of as a sidelight, we also represent those people who make gifts to charitable entities, i.e., if there's a decedent who puts in their will that they give 20% of their estate to a particular charity, we make sure that the charity ends up getting the 20% or the amount that should be given to them in the case of an estate. So our office is involved in both the oversight of not-for-profits, charitable not-for-profits, and we also oversee estates and trusts that donate for charitable purposes, so that we keep an eye on that. We have a division in our office, or a bureau within our office, called the Charities Bureau. And the Charities Bureau has attorneys, that accountants, people who can oversee finances, that were the kind of the ultimate regulator of charitable funds. In that regard, today's talk is mostly in the nature of how we can give those who would be making charitable gifts some guidance to make sure that they're giving it to the purpose for which their intention is. As we're fast approaching the holiday season, a lot of us will be receiving donation requests or solicitations to help those in this special time of year. It might be an organization that's buying toys for children so that they have a good Christmas, or that can provide, as we're fast approaching, as we give this talk, Thanksgiving meals. It could be Christmas or holiday meals. It could be clothing, could be shelter, could be any other type of assistance. And I know that we all in New York especially want to make sure that people that are not as advantaged as some of us are to be able to have a happy holiday season as well as other times. So we really want to help others by sharing the gifts that we have. In New York, we give out billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars a year in charitable donations. We all want to help those who are less fortunate, and we do that by giving of our time, talent, and treasure. So we're encouraged to do this in some respects. I know the tax laws changed within the last couple of years about deductions, but actually our tax structure is set up where there's the ability to make deductions from our taxes to encourage us to make donations. That's somewhat changed a little bit with the government administration and changing the tax laws, but there still is an encouragement there to donate. But in light of that, we also want to be very careful to make sure that anything that we donate goes to the purpose for which we intended. Charities, a lot of people don't realize that charities don't take your dollar necessarily and give it to that entire dollar over to the charitable purpose that we want it to go to. And legitimately so, because charities have expenses in order to facilitate their infrastructure, to be able to set up their programs. They have people who are out soliciting contributions as well. So it isn't that every penny that we distribute goes toward that charitable purpose directly. It may go indirectly by supporting the infrastructure for the not-for-profit. Could be a homeless not-for-profit, and that they may own properties that they have to use to fulfill their mission. So they may have expenses for purchasing those properties, for coordinating the use of the properties, having people on staff to get homeless people into those houses. So there's some overhead expenses that are very legitimate in not-for-profits. Also, the term not-for-profit's a little bit of a misnomer. What the not-for-profit laws are designed to do is they are unlike a regular corporation that has shareholders that can receive money in the way of dividends as paybacks for the operation of the corporation for a profit, where the profits flow to the owners of the corporation. And it might be a small corporation, a small business that is a retail business, that it might be a local ownership, and it's incorporated. Traditionally, the profits will go to the owners, whoever the shareholders are, the owners of the corporation. The not-for-profit, although it says not-for-profit, they are entitled to make money. It's the flow of the profits that are regulated, and that they cannot go to individuals. The profits that a not-for-profit makes are supposed to be used to further the mission of the not-for-profit. So let's say that the not-for-profit is a homeless shelter or housing, not necessarily homeless, but a housing for low-income people. they can charge rent, they can make money, they can plow the money back into not only the properties that they own, but if they generate enough money, whether it's through their receiving rents for the property that they own, or maybe they receive donations of things, they can use that money to then go out and buy another building and maybe be able to use that to fulfill their mission. So as long as they're using their profit to pursue and fulfill their mission, then they're okay. So people have to understand that there is that capability of being able to make profits. All not-for-profits aren't money losers. They would all be going out of business if that were the case. So they're entitled to do that. They have expenses and overhead, but they can make money. Now, any money they make has to be made for the purpose of fulfilling their charitable mission. Otherwise, they'll lose their not-for-profit status and that they would have to pay taxes on those sorts. So with that understanding, what is it that charities do to raise funds? Well, one way is they could be selling things, services, products, things like that. They can receive donations. They could otherwise go out and be able to get money as long as they're directed toward that purpose. And one of the big ways they arrive at funds is through donations. And we hopefully use our treasures to help contribute to them and to allow them to fulfill their charitable missions. And one of the areas that scams occur is in the area of charitable donations. And I've always said this when I put on these programs at Cornell Cooperative Extension, is that those that want to be engaged in scams will take whatever's going on in the area, the community, the state, the nation, and can twist that around to try to get us to give them money through false pretenses, false representations. And charities is one of the ways. So in this Christmas time, it's not unusual for us to receive emails or mailed solicitations asking for you to donate money, telephone calls asking us to donate money. So we have to be very careful about who we're giving our money to and being vigilant about making sure that it is going to the appropriate purpose that we intend. Solicitations come in many forms: mail, telephone, personal contact. With the telephone, a lot of us hopefully now are on the do not call registry, where our numbers are registered and that we aren't supposed to be receiving solicitations. A lot of people don't realize this, but there is an exemption in the do not call registry for charitable solicitation. So if somebody receives a call, they say, for charity, and they say, I should be receiving this call because I'm on the do not call list. Well, the do not call list, there's an exemption for charitable calls. So we'll still be receiving those calls and solicitations. But we receive those that way. It might be a table outside a store. I know I frequently will go to a retail establishment, and there might be a local Girl Scout troop selling Girl Scout cookies. They could be door-to-door solicitations. So it doesn't also have to be a direct solicitation of money. Like the Girl Scout example, they'd be selling something, selling Girl Scout cookies, and a portion of the proceeds that we pay for the cookies goes toward their charitable mission. It could be tickets for a show, send kids to a show. It could be meals, go to a local restaurant, spend a certain amount, and a certain percentage of your meal cost will go toward a particular charity. It could be a raffle. We always see these raffles, 50-50 raffles, where 50% of the raffle money goes toward the operations of the entity, and the other 50% will go toward a charitable, or 50-50 is we'll get 50% and then 50% goes toward the charitable solicitation. Or raffles where you pay $10 for a ticket and you get a gas grill or something from a drawing. Golf tournaments, we see a lot of those. People are having golf tournaments, and whatever proceeds above the cost of the golf and the meal goes toward that purpose. And there could be direct contributions, just X number of dollars goes into those sorts of things. So there's a whole host of different ways that people use to raise money. And we want to make sure that the charitable portion of those golf tournaments and meals and raffles and things actually do go toward the charitable purpose for which it was intended. A lot of times we don't know who we're dealing with. Who is it that's making this solicitation? Do we have confidence that the money that we donate is going to be used for that particular purpose? And that falls back to the old adage that we've been using here at Cornell Cooperative Extension for almost 23 years now, which is we have to be a wise consumer. Whether we're making a donation, whether we're purchasing something, we need to be a wise consumer. So we need to be a wise consumer when we're making our charitable donation. Are these donations being requested through a third party? Are these donations like a telemarketer? Are they calling us? Is it personal, a personal solicitation? However it is, we want to be good consumers and make sure that we're confident that the money that we're sending out will be used for the purpose. One way to do that is, how would a good consumer do it? Good consumer would plan, have a plan in place. I think the best thing that we can do is we can have a charitable giving plan. That is, we know how much we can afford, who we want to make donations to, and in what amounts, and make those particular donations. The problem that we can get into is if we're just willy-nilly throwing money out and not thinking about it. If we can think about it and make a decision, we're so much better off and confident in knowing who these funds are going to. Decide how much we can give. Decide the charities that we like to support. And each of us have different ones. And then make that decision and make the contribution. One of the most important things that you can do is give yourself time. Give yourself time to make that decision. The best thing to do is have a charitable giving plan. So you've made that choice ahead of time before somebody solicits you. But if you get contacted, give yourself time. One of the classic scam tactics is to not give you time to make a learned decision. You'll be asked to, contribute here. We'll send somebody over to get your money right now. Immediate red flags. Sirens should be going off in your head. If they're going to get you to immediately make a decision, send somebody out to your house to collect. There is a high likelihood that is a scam. People coming door to door, don't immediately have to give them money. Say, give me your literature, give me a chance to think about it, and I'll make a decision whether or not I want to give. If you've already have that charitable giving plan in advance, you're that much better off because you can say, I've already developed my charitable giving plan for this year. But if you want to give me your information, I'll make a decision as to whether or not to include you in next year's plan. Don't give money to someone that's being sent over. Another good way to do that is to write a check. That way you have written documentation. That serves as a purpose because if you're going to take a charitable deduction, you can have a record of it by your canceled check. The other thing is that you only make the check payable to the charitable entity. Do not make your check payable to anything other than the charitable entity. Do not make it to John Smith, who comes to your door. Oh, just make the check out to John Smith, and I'll cash it and give it to the charitable entity. Again, a red flag. That would be a potential scam. Another thing that you can do is ask how much of your dollar is going toward the charitable purpose for which it's intended. So when somebody calls you up and they say, we're going to use your funds to buy meals. You say, okay, if I give you $1, how much of that dollar is going toward that particular meal purchase? Is it 50 cents? Is it 75 cents? And when somebody says to you, it's 100% of your donation is going, red flags should be waving, sirens going off, lights flashing to say there is overhead associated with most valid charitable outfits. So it's very unlikely that every dollar is going toward that purpose. And that should cause you to pause if somebody's telling you. Now, what tricky language might be used, accounting language, they can say 100% of the net proceeds of this solicitation is going to go to this cause. As soon as they say net, you should at least have question marks, because they haven't told you anything when they say 100% of the net proceeds are going. If people don't understand accounting, there's a huge difference between gross and net. Gross is the actual dollars coming in. Net is the gross minus expenses. So when somebody says to you, the net proceeds, 100% of the net proceeds. Well, 100% of the net proceeds might be a penny, because there's 99 cents of expenses associated with it. So be aware when somebody tells you that, your response is, that doesn't tell me anything. What is the net proceeds? What percentage of the net proceeds? How much are net proceeds? And then we can say, okay, 100% of that is fine. Because if the net proceeds are 50%, out of your dollar, 50 cents is going toward other expenses, and only 50 cents is going to go toward the charitable purpose, which doesn't matter necessarily to me and any other regulator, other than we want you as donator to know so you can make an informed decision. If they say to you, well, we have our overhead expenses and things are 50%, and so we'll use half of the money to buy meals, and that's good. Then you can say, I'm willing to do that because I have all the knowledge. But you may say, I can do much better with my donated funds by giving it to the local food bank or whatever you choose to do, instead of paying for this particular solicitation. The important thing is we be good consumers. We know those things, and then we can make a decision as to what that is. I use an example. It was a long time ago. I received a telephone call from somebody, and I knew about this sort of thing. And it was a phone solicitation to make a donation for this. And I said to the telemarketer, I said, okay, well, tell me, what percentage of this money I'm giving to you goes toward that cause? I didn't remember what cause it was. And the telemarketer said, I don't have that information, Mr. Danaher, but I'd be glad to have a supervisor call you and let you know. And I said, that's great. Why don't you have your supervisor call me, and then I'll make a decision I never heard from anybody after that. So that told me something right there. So be a good consumer and understand and know what you're getting yourself into. Our office, it maintains a website. All entities holding charitable funds over a certain amount. Well, all entities holding charitable funds and soliciting charitable funds in New York are required to be registered with our office. They're required to do that. So one thing you can do is go on our website and look it up. See if they're registered. The website is charitiesnys.com, and otherwise you can just stick in your browser that you use, Bing or Google or whatever browser, just put in New York State Attorney General's Office Charities Bureau, and it'll get you to that site. But it's charitiesnys.com. There's a search box on the main page, in the left-hand side, or the right-hand side of there's a box, search. You can type the charity's name in there and search our charities database to see, one, if they're registered with our office. So all charities have to be registered. Raising funds, soliciting funds in New York need to be registered with our office. So you can look it up. And depending on how much the charity has, a charity that has $20,000 a year, that they're required if they hold charitable funds to register with us, but they are exempt from filing annual financial reports. But the larger charities, those holding more money, are actually required to file their financial reports with our office, and they're online. So if you go to charitiesnys.com, you look up the charity, you will see that their annual financial filings are with us. And you can click on those and you can actually see how much of the money, first, how much money they have and have raised. And it'll show how much they pay for administrative overhead type expenses, and how much goes toward the programs for which that they hold their funds and their charitable mission. And it's very interesting to go and look. Many for these larger charities, they actually file as a part of their filing with our office their 990, which is the federal tax return, and you can actually see it broken down. Those who engage third-party fundraisers, they hire an outside outfit to raise the money for them. They're the ones that make the telemarketing calls. Their third-party fundraiser contract has to be filed with our office. And they have to do a financial report at the end of a charitable solicitation campaign by a fundraiser. They have to file a report showing how much funds were raised during that solicitation campaign, how much went toward fundraising expenses as compared to how much went to the charitable entity for which the funds were raised. Again, if we're a good consumer, we'll follow through by looking that up. Not necessarily to say that, oh, this charity's legitimate, this charity's illegitimate. That's more of an information provision, providing information to those of us that are making charitable donations. So we can go on and look, and we can see how much of each dollar is going toward a charitable purpose, how much of each dollar is going toward overhead expenses. And then again, if it's overhead expenses are 90%, and programming, they only spend 10% of their money toward, you as a consumer can say, I'm not willing to make a donation to that entity because that money is not being principally used for what I want it to be used for. So it's more for giving people information. And I hope you'll utilize that in making a decision as to whether or not you contribute. So you get the most bang for your buck. You can say, hey, I don't want to contribute to this, or yes, I want to contribute to that. That's something that's very important to me. And I see that the money that I donate is being used wisely. And that's what we see. Another thing that we need to be aware of, and we're seeing it more frequently, are these crowdfunding sources for raising charitable funds. What's that? There's a number of websites out there that funds can be used, to raise funds for purported charitable purposes. GoFundMe is one of them, GoFundMe.com. And again, like what we've talked about before, you really need to know who's running that campaign before you make your contribution, so that you're comfortable in knowing that the funds that are raised by that campaign are going to be used for the purpose for which it was intended. The reason why I say that is I will tell you about a case that I had. I had a case at one time where it was a tragic situation where a an older child, a college student, had gone on, was at college, was going to be graduating actually very soon. This was in approximately May timeframe. So he would be graduating from college, and he was involved in a tragic accident where he ended up drowning and passed away. And he was a good kid. He, by all accounts, he was a really good kid. And his family is just great. And the family said, we're not going to let this go to waste. We're going to start a charitable entity where they held a golf tournament and they took in donations as well, to give scholarships to good kids in the memory, to continue the legacy of this good kid. It wasn't the smartest kid that they were going to make donations to, the ones that was the academic superior or the greatest athlete in the world. They're not making athletic scholarships necessarily. They just wanted it to be given to a good kid who could use the money to go to college, just like this person was. So they had a golf tournament, and they created this organization in the name of their son. The family did, the son, the parents. And around this time that this happened, and they were starting this, a co-worker of the father decided to use a crowdfunding source, GoFundMe, to raise money in support of this cause. And it said that the money was going to be all turned over to the family. So this co-worker created a GoFundMe account, and people saw this and made donations. It turns out that the person who was raising the funds didn't turn over all the money. She kept some of it. And it wasn't a huge campaign. It was, but it was thousands of dollars. And we were notified of this, and our office undertook an investigation. And thankfully, through GoFundMe, we were able to obtain records of everybody that donated it, because it was a donation virtually. So you would transfer money virtually through a credit card or a bank transfer or something to GoFundMe, and GoFundMe had a record of everybody that contributed. And they also had a record of every check that was sent to the person who originated the GoFundMe transaction, campaign. And GoFundMe, the way these organizations are set up is that a certain percentage of the donation, it's 10%, 5%, I can't remember what it was kept by GoFundMe. And of course, needed to continue the infrastructure of GoFundMe to be able to continue to do this. Certain percentage, and it was no, and the people who make the donation were notified of this. They were told that a certain percentage of your donations go toward GoFundMe, and the rest will be turned over to the fundraiser. So that all added up. We got the financial records. It all added up. GoFundMe kept what GoFundMe was supposed to keep and transferred the rest over. Unfortunately, that person did not transfer the money over. So we ended up having to sue that person and get a judgment against that person for the amount that she did not turn over. And we ended up collecting virtually all of that money through a wage deduction from her employer and paid the money over to the charity. We were happy to pay the money over to the charity so that they could then use it for the mission for which the funds were raised. So you really have to know who it is that's running the program, making the solicitation of one of these crowdfunding sources, and be confident. If you know them, be confident that they're ones that would properly handle that money that you're donating. If you do not know them, do not donate. If you aren't confident that that's going to happen, do not donate. There are other ways you could, in this particular scenario, you could have contacted the family directly and said to the family, hey, I'd like to make a contribution. Who do I send the check to? And maybe the family say, well, there's a GoFundMe page, so we're going to use it through GoFundMe. That's fine. Or you could send it, make a check payable to XYZ Scholarship Fund or whatever the name of the charity is, and send it directly to them. And then you're much more confident that what you're giving is going to the purpose and that you're not being defrauded. The other thing that I like to segue over to is for those of us who participate in charities, those who serve on boards of charities, those who help raise funds for charities. We have a responsibility to make sure that this organization that we have joined is doing what it says it's going to do. Participate fully in that organization if we're a board member. Or if we are not willing to do so, don't get involved. Because there can be financial responsibility on the part of board members who are not adequately overseeing the operations of that not-for-profit. I know a lot of us get a solicitation from a friend of ours who's on the board and say, hey, we're looking for new board members. Will you join? You go, all right, I'll join. But we really don't participate. We could have some financial exposure if we're not properly overseeing what's going on. So, one, participate. Really, boards of not-for-profits need your participation, need your insight, need your expertise. So we all need to join. I've been on a whole bunch of those. I've been officer of not-for-profits, I've been a board member on not-for-profits, and happily do so and enjoy the work. But we have to be careful. Make sure that the organization is doing what it's doing. There are many resources that are out there. One of the fundamental ones is the one I've told you about before, charitiesnys.com. Our Charities Bureau has many publications. All you have to do is, if you go to the main page, it's the bottom. I'm always there looking at it. The bottom left link is guides and publications. Click on that. And there are actually booklets that our office has that help those who are on not-for-profit boards. One is, I think it's called Right from the Start, meaning doing the right things from the start. And it lists what people's obligations are, what they should be doing on these particular boards. When you go to the board meetings, that's what they're there for. Look at the financial records that come to you at every board meeting. All the boards that I've been on, the finance committee always makes a report. And it shows what money's come in, what they've used the money for, if there was a particular campaign that they were running separate from the overall operation. It might be a campaign for a particular cause. Get the financials for that and make sure that the money is being used for that purpose, so that, one, you're protecting the beneficiaries of the organization's purpose, you're guiding the organization, you're helping with that. A robust board is invaluable. Those who are questioning the treasurer, those who are questioning the program director when they come in and give their reports and saying, hey, are we doing what we should be doing? And then making decisions. It's really important for the vibrancy of our not-for-profits, our charitable not-for-profits, to have steering by a board that's committed, has the time. If you don't have the time to go to the meetings, as much as we don't like to say no, say no. I just don't have the time. Or I just don't have the interest in it. Don't do it halfway. One, you have some exposure as a fiduciary of that entity. But two, it's just not doing anyone any good if you're only in there half-hearted. Go in, do it. Maybe you have a 2-year appointment and you say, hey, I can do this for 2 years, and you do. But don't join every board that you get asked to join unless you can really put forth the effort. It's not good for you. It's not good for the mission. It's not good for the beneficiaries who might from those sorts of things. That's my talk. I hope we have a lot of people out there that are making donations to the organizations that are near and dear to their heart, and are also participating in boards to guide that particular mission. If there's any questions out there, I know that they would go through the chat function. Sandy had those for me. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for attending. I know that we're in this virtual world, and for the indefinite future, we're going to be in this virtual world, but I hope that you continue to join us. Those of you that are watching this on tape replay or seeing it on TV, join us. As was mentioned before, we're on the second Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. that we do this live, and hope that you will join us. Put your questions in if you want. If you have questions, you're watching this and you have questions, shoot them over to Cornell Cooperative Extension and we'll try to address those for you. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to those who joined us today for this presentation. Mr. Danaher will be back with us on Thursday, December 10th at 11 a.m. with a presentation on avoiding consumer problems on the Internet. You can sign up to get the Zoom link on our website at ccetompkins.org/events. Thanks.